welcome to King for the Day, your racing's dictator.
Racing in the 2012 is still remarkably like it was in 1912.
It's not going to happen overnight. People aren't going to change the way that they operate.
The cake is big enough to divide up.
The industry can't just stand still. People think it doesn't happen. It happens all the time.
That can't be the future for racing.
What changes and reforms would you introduce?
Never in any other field has 99.1% of the public been deprived from doing something because of 0.9%. They've never had such a say on public policy.
Philip Davies, Conservative MP for Shipley since 2005, worked in and managed betting shops, and in Parliament is a member of the Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee. His passion is horse racing. As a small owner and breeder, and from the backbenches he has championed the interests of punters and stood up in defence of bookmakers. As a leading right-wing rebel, he campaigns for the free market and core anti-European Union traditional Tory values, and vowed on entering Parliament never to become a shadow spokesman or minister. Philip, welcome to King for the Day, your racing's dictator. What changes and reforms would you introduce?
Well, it'd be a nice thought to be racing's dictator. I think one of the first things that I would want to focus on is the fixture list and the way that fixtures are allocated. At the moment, fixtures are allocated to the owners of racecourses, and that they can transfer fixtures willy-nilly as they like. And that's the reason why we've seen recently the closure of Folkestone and Hereford racecourses, because Northern Racing, who owned them...
It's now ARC.
It's now ARC, absolutely, now part with Arena. They can close down racecourses and reduce their cost base and keep the fixtures that were allocated to those racecourses by transferring them somewhere else. And if we don't do something about that very quickly, it seems to me that we're going to see the closure of many more racecourses. Whereas if the racecourse themselves had the fixture and they couldn't be transferred to other courses in the group, I don't think we'd ever have seen the closure of Hereford or Folkestone. And you know, one of the great strengths of British racing is its diversity, the diversity of racecourses. You know, it's not like America where they're all the same and they all run around the same way. You know, all the different race courses in the country, particularly the small national hunt courses, which I like particularly. I think they're at risk if we don't do something about how we allocate fixtures.
But you're a free market man. If a racecourse isn't making money, if it's losing money, in any other business it would close.
Well, I'm not entirely sure whether or not Folkestone and Hereford are losing money, to be perfectly honest. It's just that they're probably not making as much money as they could by closing them down and transferring the fixtures somewhere else. Racecourse have never had it so good, to be perfectly honest, in terms of the money they're getting from bookmakers for picture rights. It's never been more viable for racecourses to stay open. So I don't think this is about racecourses that couldn't be kept going otherwise. I think this is just an anomaly in the system which is leading perversely to an incentive to the owners of courses to close down the least popular ones and transfer the fixtures to the more popular ones.
Are there too many racecourses? Many believe that.
No, I don't think there are. I think it would be a travesty if we were to close down racecourses. That's one of the strengths. And, you know, if we want people to go racing, you need to have more racecourses so that more racecourses are closer to people locally. So, no, I absolutely don't want to see racecourses closing. I want the exact opposite to be the case. We've seen with Fosslas how you can have great new racecourses. So the only reason they're going to close down is if we allow owners to keep transferring fixtures to their more high-profile courses, and I want to avoid that.
Who should decide the fixture list? Should it go to the BHA, the ruling body?
Yeah, I think it should, to be perfectly honest. I may well be a free market in many things, but you know, you've got to be practical about this. And I think that the changes we've seen recently in terms of allocating fixtures have been bad for racing, to be honest. We've got race meetings on next door to each other, when before we used to have a 50-mile rule, which was very sensible, where racing will take place in different parts of the country. Now they're often on top of each other, trying to run meetings, competing for the same customers. And also, you know, when I was in betting shops with my parents' firm, on Easter Monday there would be 16 meetings, and it would be a nightmare settling bets and all the rest of it from in the shops. But it was a great opportunity for people to go racing. It was a bank holiday, everybody was off work, and all of those people could go, and the racecourses would be packed. And that really is what it should be all about. And You know, we now only have 5 meetings on a bank holiday, and there's lots of people who would go racing, who could go racing, who now can't because of the changes that have been made to fixtures. I'm a big fan of putting on more festivals as well for people to go to races.
They're always called festivals, aren't they? Can't we get a different word for them?
Well, yeah, absolutely. But what I mean by a festival isn't necessarily sort of Cheltenham or Aintree, great though they are. I'm talking about more modest festivals like they have in Ireland, where sort of many racecourses will have a week where it's on every day. Perth do it
a week of racing. We have 5 days Royal Ascot, Goodwood's 5 days. People, York's moved up to 4, Cheltenham's moved up to 4. People say that's too much. I agree with you, but people do think that you want to get the variety and not have it all in one place for so long.
No, I don't agree. I mean, if you take Perth as an example, Perth have a 3-day festival in April. Which is very, very popular, and actually for some of the courses that are at the extremes of the country, places like Perth, maybe places like Newton Abbot and Exeter, it's an awful long way for people to go to get there. Whereas actually if you put on a meeting and it's 3 days, 4 days, you will actually get people from around the country who will say, well, I'll go and have a little holiday over there and go to the racing every day. You know, that's what happens at Perth. The people go to Perth from all over the UK, and they go and stay there for 2 or 3 days. It's a social thing, it's a holiday, and it boosts the attendances. And I think more of those kinds of mini festivals for racecourses around the country would help to boost attendances. I don't have a problem with them having a say. I think they have too much control over fixtures at the moment, and I think racing needs to actually do what's best for racing. It's the priority for horse racing should be what's best for racing, and how do we promote as many people going to the races as possible. If we want people to be interested in horse racing, there's no substitute for people going to the races. I don't know anybody who doesn't go to the races and have a great day when they go.
Except when they lose.
Well, even when people lose, they tend to have a good day as long as they bet responsibly. But the problem is at the moment is that the fixtures are too often run for the benefit of bookmakers. The bank holidays are a prime example, when we used to have lots of fixtures where people could go to the races. The bookmakers say, oh, we can only cope with 5, we can only cover 5, so please put only 5 on. And there's sort of tens of thousands of people who would have gone to the other 10 or 11 fixtures on that day now do something else. They don't go to the races, they go to football, or they go
but
to the
there's
local
virtually no
park.
betting on them. If there were 15 meetings, whatever it is, however intense the media coverage, and it's much better now than it used to be, lots of punters wouldn't get involved in the smaller meetings. Having them some other time, surely that helps the turnover, and as long as bookmakers' turnover goes up, there's more money for the levy and for racing.
But that's one of the problems, really. This is why bookmakers do have control. That's why, you know, for example, we're seeing the phasing out of sort of graduation chasers, which were fantastic for second season chasers. That was a good bridge between competing against novices and seasoned handicappers. Well, they've all gone because there used to be 3 or 4 runners, and the bookmakers didn't like them. And so the bookmakers have actually squeezed them out, whereas actually they served a very useful purpose for top quality horses. You know, we don't really want too much betting fodder. I don't want racing just to become betting fodder, betting shop fodder. What racing should be concentrating on is putting on fixtures that people want to go to. At the moment, we're going to end up with a situation where we just have meetings on behind closed doors for the benefit of betting shops, and that can't be the future for racing, and that's the problem when you're reliant on a subsidy. You do everything just to get more and more subsidy rather than actually look at what's in the long-term best interest of the sport. I'm a big believer in individual freedom, and it's not for me to tell people what they can and can't spend their money on. People should be free to spend the money as they see fit. Personally, I've never played on a fob tee in my life. I don't see the attraction. It's of no interest at all to me. But it's not for me to dictate to everybody else what they can and can't spend the money on. If people want to play on fob tees, they should be free to do so. So then the issue comes down to how many should you have in a betting shop? Well, the current limit is 4. Now, as far as I'm concerned, you can only play on 1 at a time. I mean, if you're particularly proficient, you may be able to play on 2. So whether you have 1 in there, 2 in there, 3, 4, 6, 8, it doesn't really have any impact on problem gambling because you can only play on 1 at a time anyway. It's like saying that if a pub puts on 10 extra beers in its pub that you'll get an increase in drunkards because there's more beer available. Well, you can only drink 1 pint at a time, however many varieties are there. So it's a completely nonsensical argument. Actually, since FOBTs have been introduced into betting shops, the rate of problem gambling has barely changed in this country. So there's no real evidence to suggest that it's fueling a huge rise in problem gambling. Problem gambling is pretty stable. It's 0.9% in the country. Never in any other field has 99.1% of the public been deprived from doing something because of 0.9%. They've never had such a say on public policy. And what's important is that we have treatments available for people who have a problem, that they can go to it, they can be helped. But people having a problem shouldn't stop 99% of people from pursuing a pastime that they enjoy. And with internet gambling, people can gamble on their computer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without any controls whatsoever. So actually allowing people to do so in a more controlled environment in the betting shop, most people you would think will be a good thing rather than a bad thing. So I think all of this stuff over FOBTs is people pursuing their own prejudice rather than actually any looking at the facts.
Isn't it amazing, though, when you think of it, as you were saying, 24 hours a day, non-stop gambling? So if you did away with all FOBs, it would make no difference to problem gambling at all. The old days, when you could only bet on horses, greyhounds and the football pools, then you could argue controlling, if they tried to bring in FOBs then, you could argue, oh, well, there's an extra outlet for people. Now, there's no answer at all. You can bet solidly, roulette, poker, whatever it is, virtual racing all day and night.
Absolutely, and you know, I'm a big fan of competition, and when people talk about proliferation of betting shops, in effect what they're talking about is competition between different firms. That's a good thing, and you know, I think that there's too little talked about how many people's jobs are dependent on betting shops. They employ an awful lot of people who would lose their jobs presumably if these things close down. And I don't really see in lots of town centres, I don't see lots of retailers clamouring to take out new shopping space in town centres and that bookmakers are elbowing them out of the way. In effect, what bookmakers are preventing is boarded up shops. And if people really want to see boarded up shops over betting shops, well, let them argue that case. But I certainly don't. I'd certainly sooner see some activity and some employment going on. And it's not for me as a politician to dictate what shops are on the high street and what shops aren't. It's the free market, and if people don't want to go to them,